gusset.com/America Today. Hi, this is Alex Jones. You've heard me talk about the delicious, easy-to-fix, and very storable foods from eFoodsDirect.com. I've told you for years that eFoods Direct has the best storable food on the planet. Now it's that time of year again, and their holiday special is here. They have 2 holiday price packs for you to put into your reserves for a secure future or to share with others. The first is a 6-month bulk supply in 10 cans. And the second is a 5-week supply of quick and easy-to-fix meals, including delicious bakery items shipped in heavy tote bags. Now, for a limited time, when you order 2 or more of these special holiday packs, you'll get free shipping on your entire order. Call now, 800-409-5633, or visit them at efoodsdirect.com/Alex. That's 800-409-5633, or efoodsdirect.com/Alex.
He's the T-Rex of political talk. Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network.
Well, the man we've got with us for the rest of the hour, we'll probably even do some overdrive into the 4th hour and take your phone calls, is Porter Stansberry, Stansberry Research. They are a subscription-based analyst organization. They've got newsletters, specialized info. We'll get him to talk about all of that. The website's endofamerica3.com, endofamerica3.com, or there's banners all over Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. And I remember over the years reading about his predictions. We should have already gotten Mr. Stansberry on the show. Barron's called his work a dire prophecy because going back to 2005, 2006, with precision, he said GM's going to go bankrupt, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, which they did, the government came in, and America's biggest mall owner, General Growth Properties. Well, now he's making his most dire prediction yet, and we're going to get him to talk about that main prediction and some of the other capillary connections to that, but also his ideas on how to protect yourself. And so Porter Stansberry with Stansberry and Associates, investment research, private publishing company based in Baltimore, Maryland. Formerly, of course, he was the first U.S. Head in the long history. Prior to launching Stansberry and Associates 11 years ago, Porter was the first American editor of the Fleet Street Letter. Boy, that's famous. The oldest English language financial newsletter. So you've got the floor here, sir. Let's walk through the real fundamentals, why the pundits won't tell people the truth, the state that our economy really is, the big prediction you've got coming up, and how folks protect themselves.
Well, Alex, unfortunately, it's very simple. It's just a matter of math. Over the last 30 years, the United States went from being the world's largest creditor to becoming the world's largest debtor to becoming the world's largest debtor in history. And the simple fact of the matter is far too many people, corporations, and our government itself can't afford those obligations. And rather than writing them off and restructuring and biting the bullet, all those obligations are now ending up on the books of the U.S. Treasury, and that is going to have catastrophic effects for the value of the U.S. dollar going forward.
Let's go through the technicals on that. Some stations just joined us. Recap some of the incredible predictions you've made, the fundamentals, and then walk through what we're facing.
Well, Alex, everyone is familiar by now with the mortgage crisis, and the problem there was a bunch of people who didn't really have any credit were extended large amounts of credit, and that had the effect of inflating the underlying collateral, and then the whole thing burst like a house of cards in 2008. Now the finger pointing has all begun. But the important thing for investors to realize is that all those debts have not gone away. The government has continued to underwrite them through its bailout of Fannie and Freddie and its bailout of the banks. And a lot of these obligations are now on the books of the Federal Reserve and the U.S. Treasury. The problem with us as a country is that our ability to print unlimited new amounts of money can solve a debt crisis like this, but the only way it solves it is by greatly devaluing the value of that currency. And my concern is, going forward, how people are going to be able to afford the resulting inflation and the terrible economic problems that could result from this coming inflationary problem.
Well, let's start. I mean, you've got the floor. You're the expert. You've predicted so much of what's unfolded. Break it down for us.
Okay, well, let's start with a simple fact. people are familiar with the terrible crisis probably that happened in Iceland and the crises that have erupted in Greece and in Spain and in Italy, where these governments have simply gone bankrupt. Well, the reason why those governments went bankrupt is because they had to bail out their banks that had made a bunch of bad loans to people who really couldn't repay them. The exact same thing has happened in the United States, the exact same thing. In fact, the total debt to GDP ratio in Iceland was about 400% when the country collapsed. In the U.S., the total debt to GDP ratio is the same number, about 400%. We're just as bankrupt. The only difference is that we have the power to print the world's reserve currency, which is the U.S. dollar. And so as the Fed goes ahead and prints more and more money, and as the U.S. Treasury goes ahead and bails out more and more businesses, the result of this is going to be a dramatic decrease in the purchasing power of the U.S. dollar. The impact of this is already being felt. If you're in the commodity markets in any way, shape, or form, you've already seen prices skyrocket for everything from, corn to natural gas to oil to gold to silver, etc. Those big rises in price don't make any sense in an economy that's growing as slowly as ours. The problem is the money. The money is being devalued.
And the governments know this. I mean, you see them increasing the police state forces. You see them preparing for it. You see the Pentagon this year and last year, the Ministry of Defense 3 years ago in England, saying devaluation's coming and we got to get ready to suppress the population. But then they never blame the central banks that have basically allowed this to happen or this big welfare state that has fostered it. So when we see these pundits up on TV or these Treasury secretaries or Fed secretaries, correct me if I'm wrong, from your perspective, they know full well the laws of economics that you're laying out here. They're just bamboozling people. Why are they doing that?
Well, because it usually works. I like to tell people that scarcity is the #1 law of economics. There could never be enough of anything to satisfy everyone. That's why if you give something away like medicine for free, demand is going to soar, shortages are going to erupt, there's going to be lines and huge problems. Everyone understands this about real life. Scarcity is an economic fact, cannot be repealed by the government. So, but politics is all about patronage, which means the way to get elected in politics is to promise everything to everyone. Well, that's diametrically the opposite of what reality is all about, right? Because the #1 rule in economics is scarcity. So how do you connect those two things? How does a politician create abundance? There's only one way, and it's with paper money. Paper money gives the politicians the flexibility they need to carry huge debts for a long amount of time. The problem is, and inevitably, sooner or later, your creditors start wondering, what's this paper really worth? And the moment that happens, the whole house of cards can collapse. It's happened time and time again all around the world, and unfortunately, it's happening right now in America.
And, I try to explain this to your average yuppie, and I love the American people. I'm an American. It's not just Americans. Europeans are in somewhat of denial. We've had it so good so long, people can't believe that it could actually happen here. But studying Argentina or Mexico or Nigeria or Zimbabwe or Weimar Republic, Germany, perhaps, Porter, you should go through a few examples of that. I mean, we know what happens with accelerated currency devaluation. And then you add to that deindustrialization, an aging population. I mean, it's a perfect storm. Back in the Depression, 90% of people, right at 90, it was actually 89 point something, if you look at the historians' numbers, on average during that 10-year period, were agrarian, were somewhat self-sufficient. Now it's 89 or 90% are living in the city, don't know how to grow a tomato plant if their life depended on it. If we have a Great Depression triggered by this, we're talking about a road warrior type scenario in my view. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It's very hard to forecast exactly what the outcome of this will be. There are a couple of things about the situation today that are very, very unusual, though, that make me very concerned. The biggest one that I think people can understand pretty easily is there's never been a time in world history before where the global economy was reliant on paper currency. That is very, very, very new. It wasn't like that before 1971.
Yeah, we're a lot more domesticated now. I mean, people were still closer to the land. It's like Jamaica was thriving even though they were poor 30 years ago, but when they defaulted, it's a hellhole now.
Well, there's lots of things like that. As you move from sound economy to paper economy, there are lots of bad investments that get made and lots of good companies that end up going out of business. That's definitely happening in the United States. But the big thing that I want to stress to everyone who's listening is that as America devalues, it's going to be a global crisis. around the world, the dollar makes up more than 60% of the world's currency reserves. That's other central banks. It's other large commercial banks. So as the dollar devalues, it's going to have a much, much bigger effect than, say, if just the Argentine peso devalues or, the Italian lira devalues.
It's causing a global devaluation.
Exactly. And there will be a global run to hard assets, and it has already begun. If you look at the price of silver, for example, the low in silver was around $7 an ounce during the 2008 crisis. Silver recently touched $30. There is no explanation for the move in silver outside of a global move away from the dollar. And that is absolutely happening. It's happening right now, and there's no one else who's going to tell you why it's happening, how it's happening, and what to do about it.
From your deep research and forecasting skills, Porter, where do you see silver and gold in the next year to two? I mean, if this devaluation, and I want to get to the technicals of that, starts to accelerate, where will silver and gold be?
Well, if we can, let's just go back to when I started writing about these problems in the mid-2000s, 05 and 06. At the time, gold was around $500 an ounce, and I was saying that it would definitely go to at least $2,000 an ounce. And believe me, Alex, everyone thought, oh, he's got to be a front for some bullion dealer. He's out of his mind. Gold can't quadruple. That's insane. Well, now it's at $1,400, and $2,000 seems likely to most mainstream economists.
Well, let me be clear. I am hooked up with a bullion dealer, and I promote it because I believe in it, because I know in history you start devaluing currency, metals of any commodity generally go up the fastest because the metal hadn't gone up, the value of the paper's gone down.
Right, and let me just be clear. I mean, I'm a subscription business, so if I'm wrong about my advice, I lose my subscribers. There's not, for me, it's all
same here. If I'm wrong, I lose my listeners.
Exactly. So what I'm about to say next, I think, is going to be a little shocking, but I wanted to preface it by saying I wasn't calling for gold at $10,000 an ounce 5 years ago. What's happened is that the amount of paper that has been created has greatly increased. So whereas I thought it would take $2,000 gold to balance the market 5 years ago, I now think it will take $10,000 gold. And I don't make that number up out of thin air. If you look at the amount of money that exists now, there's a form of money called money of zero maturity. It's basically every digital receipt that's out there that is a demand payment. So you walk into a bank, you say, I want my money right now, in your savings account or your checking account. That's money of zero maturity. If you look at how much money it would take to back that with gold, not at 100%, but at 10%, at 25%, you start looking at what the price of gold would have to be for that to balance out, and you get to $10,000 an ounce in gold.
Unbelievable. Let's break down the technicals on that on the other side. End of America, the number 3.com, endofamerica3.com. Porter Stansberry of Stansberry Research is our guest. Stay with us. Key intel straight ahead. We're starting to get into the key info. Stay with us.
Forget everything you've been told about long-term food storage. When all hell breaks loose, you'll need the single most effective way to get high-powered Delta Force nutrients to your family fast. Like any Special Forces commando, you need a plan. You need a Black Hawk Down food plan. Introducing the Survival Sprout Bank from Solutions from Science. It's your countertop survival garden. Yes, grow fresh greens right on your countertop in just a few short days. Sprouts are the green shoots that emerge from newly germinated seeds, and they are powerhouses of living, easily absorbed nutrients. The Survival Sprout Bank is a complete kit with nothing else to buy. And with sprouts so easy to grow, even children can grow emergency food. Call 877-327-0365 or go to survivalsproutbank.com. That's 877-327-0365 or order online at survivalsproutbank.com.